I trusted him with everything, and he took it all. Today, I'm going to share the story of when I decided it was time to grow up and what happened next, because that moment was the beginning of everything changing. I trusted him with absolutely everything, and he took it all. Not some of it, not most of it, all of it. Every account empty. And the hardest part wasn't even the money. It was realizing how long I'd been handing it over without ever even seeing it. I was still rather young and supposed to be blissfully retired, living my best life, but instead, one day, I woke up broke. I found out that my checking account was empty, my savings account was empty, my 401k, my inheritance, the home equity loan was maxed, and the house was remortgaged again. My cash reserves that I was just sure were tucked away in that secret place where we always kept a bunch of cash just in case. No money. I did find the tiniest little corner of $100 bill, which only made it worse. And it was a huge surprise. This came out so far from left field that nobody could have ever told me it was going to happen, and I would have believed them. I made amazingly great money. I had a huge corporate job. It was the reason we moved from Boston to where we were living. I was the breadwinner. He handled all the finances. I never worried about money ever. He had it all under control. I never had to think about it. I remember one time, uh, one of the perks of my great job was traveling overseas. I would go to different food shows and visit different manufacturing plants. I got to learn how almost everything you eat is made in some of the best, most beautiful places on the planet. It was absolutely the experience of a lifetime. And on this one particular trip, because I was going to Paris and Italy and Switzerland and all these amazing places, my husband asked if he could tag along. And of course, young and in love, 100% totally down for it. So we planned this amazing trip of a lifetime. We were going to meet some friends during the vacation portion. He had all kinds of fun activities planned for a while. I was working and going to factories. I remember he knew that it was one of the first years that they were celebrating Halloween in France. And he was just thinking he would be the coolest guy on the block, knowing all about Halloween in the local bars and restaurants, or maybe at the racetrack while I was touring factories. I don't know. But he was leaving from Boston, and I was leaving from where we lived at the time. And I didn't give it a thought about money. I threw my ATM card in my wallet and got on the plane. Rushing about because all I ever did was work then, and especially when he was out of town, I worked even more. So it was like rush, rush to get to the airport, onto the plane, and I couldn't wait to see him. I get to Chicago and I realize like I have zero cash, and I've got a little while before my flight takes off to Paris. So I stop at an ATM, figure I'll get out enough money to have a decent meal and, a few drinks and pass some time pleasantly. And I put my card in the machine and there's no money. Like $0 and 0 cents. Like I am gripped with panic, but I call my handsome and amazing husband, and he immediately assures me that he was just setting up some new accounts. He was taking care of some business. So sorry, and all the excitement about planning the trip, he completely forgot to tell me. I shouldn't give it a moment's thought, and everything was fine. And I mean, everything might have been fine, but I had this one ATM card and I'm sitting in Chicago O'Hare with zero cash. Didn't feel very fine at the time. Um, I knew that I had a business class ticket, so I could while away some hours with some cocktails and good food. Um, the lounge wasn't open right away. And I do remember kind of like pacing nervously and having a little bit of panic, like, what if the lounge didn't open? What if they didn't have food? Um, I don't know. It was the first indication of little clouds on the horizon. My flight got delayed. At first by a little. They were just going to check something, and, better safe than sorry. I'm all for checking something. But the delay got longer, and the lounge wasn't open. And I'm watching the board, standing in the hall, can't even buy a cup of coffee or get a drink in a bar. And I started to ruminate, like, what could really be going on here? Like, it wasn't total panic or abject fear yet, but it didn't feel good. I was starting to vibrate a little bit. I knew I didn't feel safe all of a sudden because, I mean, without any money, like, what if I had to spend the night in a hotel? Like, what was I going to do? I didn't have any credit cards with me. I mean, it was just ridiculous. It was ridiculous that a grown woman with a big corporate job, who, by the way, had my corporate credit card, but we were told never to use that for personal reasons. So, of course, being the good girl, I'm not going to use it for personal reasons, especially not a cocktail. They definitely, definitely, definitely frowned on that. And at this point, I could really use a drink. Finally, the lounge opens, and I just remember making a lot of nervous chatter, small talk with the people that I was near. Of course, I ordered the world's biggest martini at the bar right when I sat down, because I definitely needed to knock the edge off the feeling that something wasn't right, and then the nerves. My nerves were shot at this point. And so I made polite conversation because here I am. I have this image of myself that I'm this happily married woman, fairly young, executive at a big corporation, flying to Paris, for crying out loud, to meet her handsome husband and spend a month in Europe having a fabulous time. So I'm going to present the image of that woman, not the image of the woman who's like low level, panicking, scared to death, thinking, what if it's all a lie? What if there is no money in another bank account? I ended up being stuck in that airport bar for 10 hours. And I probably had an extra cocktail, and I probably talked a little too familiarly with more than one stranger. And it was this very kind of nervous chatter, this very kind of hoping that everything was going to be okay. But somewhere in the back of my mind, there was a little storyteller just churning out infinite versions of what could go wrong. What could go wrong next here at the airport? What if I ended up needing that hotel? Like, a 10-hour delay could easily turn into no taking off. Like, it just was completely reasonable to me that I was in a worst possible scenario situation. And it was supposed to be my dream vacation. I did manage to reach out and call my husband one more time. And at this point, I was pretty unhappy with him. Like, how dare he not prepare me and let me get on a plane in this condition? Like, I was angry. And he had already gotten to the hotel. And he just said, don't worry, everything's fine. You'll see as soon as you get here, everything will be okay. This will be a distant memory. We're going to have a wonderful time. And boy, did I want to believe that. But there's a part of me that just wouldn't. It was nagging. It was persistent. It wouldn't go away. Eventually, I'm sure after boring one too many other passengers in the lounge, who, by the way, they were coming and going, getting on and off flights, And me, I just had this endless story going on in my head that I probably retold a half a dozen times, reiterating the story of how everything's fine. I'm just hanging out here because, ha ha ha, these little hiccups in travel, and don't you know how important I am and what a big job I have and what a great life I have. In the meantime, the little storyteller is churning out the nightmares in the back of my head. And any chance I had to sit alone looking out a window or staring at the board, watching the flight continue to get delayed, wasn't helping. Well, at some point, probably after I had long given up hope that I was ever going to get on a plane, I did get on a plane and took off for Paris. And I figured I would take myself a nap, and when I woke up, it would all just be a bad dream that I was having. And landed in Paris uneventfully. And when I arrived, there was an adorable little French chauffeur waiting with a card with my name on it, ushering me to a beautiful limousine. We dashed off to our really cool hotel. We stayed at the Louvre Hotel, which out of the window we could see the Louvre Museum. So, like, what could be better than that? Is idyllic, right? I got there. I think there was champagne in the limousine. I don't remember. I was exhausted, over being upset at all, super grateful to have landed in Paris, really anxiously looking forward to seeing my husband, even though I had questions for him. I tried to be caught up in the moment, and it was kind of amazing. Got to the hotel, as I've already said, like the view beyond the hotel, just so charming. And as they were bringing the bags up to my room, I went ahead. My husband opened the door, handsome and dashing as ever, winning smile. And I was crazy about him, just over the moon crazy about him. I don't remember how long we'd been married then. It had been a few years, but we stayed pretty crazy in love for a very long time, which was really nice. I remember, I think he had my favorite drink waiting. We had a dinner reservation, but if I wanted to go to sleep, I could take a nap. He was just so conciliatory. He went above and beyond because he knew how inconvenienced I was. And, you know, I just kind of one good kiss away from all is forgiven, all is forgotten, everything is okay, all is right with the world. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of that simple. And I think maybe that happened more than once in my marriage. He was a charming, charming man by his own recording. So that was just a little moment of awareness about some of the things that happened long before I decided to grow up, long before I quote unquote lost everything. I guess the real pain at the end of the day for me wasn't about the money. It was about the betrayal. It was the really, really harsh realization that none of this happened overnight. So the story isn't about money. The story is about power and how we give it away in little bits and pieces over and over again in the smallest, most inconsequential, almost seemingly meaningless things that happen. Just the little odd things we do through the day and through the weeks and the months and the years that add up to where I found myself. So it isn't a podcast about money. It's about taking power back, even if you think it's too late. Because the truth is, my story didn't start when everything fell apart and when I lost everything. It started long before that in ways that looked completely reasonable at the time. So I will invite you to join me next Thursday, where you'll hear a little bit more of my story, and maybe you'll even make the decision to join me in my journey of growing up late.